So, coach, you always talk about the big three. Do you want to explain those in depth, what they are and why they're important to the world of bodybuilding?
So the big three is consists of they call it the big three because they're centered around the powerlifting sort of exercises. That's where they originated from. They also
Okay.
are they structure from the basis of where a lot of programs are made. They're barbell exercise, bench pressing, barbell squats, and deadlifting.
Yep.
Obviously, because when you bench press, you're mainly working your chest and your triceps. Prime mover there. The big question that someone usually asks if you say you've been training in the gym or you say you're a bodybuilder, the first
How
question
much
someone
do you
asks you,
bench?
exactly, how much do you bench? Well, how much is it?
Well,
And
to typically say I go for growth. So I don't, it's oh my Lord. It just ego lifting is not the way. Let's just say that.
but the thing is, for the most people, if a person asks you that, that you don't really know what their version of what is a lot to what is a little. So like what their point of reference is, it's you could say 100 kilos and an untrained lifter or someone that doesn't bench, they're like, oh wow, that's massive.
Yeah.
But to a seasoned bodybuilder that actually might have bench pressing in their training repertoire, that well, it's okay. It's nothing to be shy about. But if
Yeah.
you're a power lifter, it's probably not that great. It's great if you weigh 50 kilos, like because it's
Yeah.
twice your body weight. But yeah, there's for some unknown reason that seems to be where people are at when they ask that question. I try not to take it too personally when I get asked it because I usually get asked if someone finds out I'm a bodybuilder, they're like, "Oh, how much you bench?" I've been asked the same question
Yeah.
over and over again.
Same, yeah. Even when I tell people, oh, I like to go to the gym, they're like, oh, how much do you bench? And I'm like, oh, shit. And you just like tell them tip it, and you just tell them like the truth. And they're like, oh, because at the moment I'm benching 60. To me, three sets of like 8 to 10, that's
Hey,
pretty
so am
good
I.
form. Yeah, for real. I know. With like good form, that's okay. And then people are like, oh, that's not a lot. I'm like, bro, you get on the bench.
Well, yeah. So I needed to get yesterday. I knew I was going to have to do 3 training sessions. It was either I go for a cycle for 40K or I go windsurfing. I'm like, well, windsurfing's a bit more fun, so I'm going for that.
Yeah.
So I can, instead of doing dumbbells, because I have to build my dumbbells from as you make them. So
Oh,
they're an Olympics, they're an Olympic dumbbell. So you fit Olympic plates on there and you
yeah.
build it like you do a barbell. But the thing is,
Okay.
if you make one that's 25, 30 kilos, it takes you a little bit of time. Whereas if I just slap two 20s on a bar, that's 60 kilos. And I'm like, I'm just going to rep this out. Just time. But also, I haven't benched. I don't actually remember the last time I benched. Probably a year ago, I reckon, was the last time I benched. So,
Yeah.
but
What stopped you benching out of curiosity?
um, so I did go through a phase, probably maybe. I think I was maybe probably 10 years ago, maybe longer than that, where I was trying to test my 1RM because another guy in the gym was boasting on how much he was lifting. I'm like, I'm going to see if I can beat this guy. Pure ego. I
Yeah,
beat him.
that's good.
Buggered my shoulder trying to do it, but I think I tried to do my 1RM for 2 reps, and then yeah, that didn't end well. So,
Oos.
um, but yeah, looking back in terms of my technique, because in a bench press in the bench press event in a powerlifting meet, your backside, your back, and your feet are meant to be on the ground. But what you might see is for some people with that try to get a lot of leverage, they usually have their backside off the bench and they drive
Yeah,
straight through their heels.
yeah.
So the
Is
downside
that
of
when
that is,
yeah,
yeah,
it's like spine looks like that?
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it's not if you're flexible enough. Like I've seen some chicks with really short arms
yeah,
basically have a range of motion of about this much, but
yeah.
because they're so short, but they've got so much back flexibility, the bar barely actually it touches like this part of the chest and comes up like maybe 10 centimeters tops. but their backside's on the bench, their back's on the bench, and they get a range of motion of 10 centimeters, and that apparently that qualifies. And I'm like, okay. From a muscle building standpoint, it looks terrible, but
yeah, I know, because every time I see someone doing it, I'm like, oh, that just like hurts my spine to look at. But you know,
yeah.
I mean, whatever works for people, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it depends on what sport you're into, I guess. So, but
Yeah, true.
but I ended up doing, and then I was probably testing low reps, high weight, and the thing is, with bench press, because you're not using your elbows are flared out when you're doing it, so the distance for your shoulder for how much it has to work, it puts your shoulders under a lot of strain, particularly when you're working at basically 100%, 90 to 100%. And my lat ended up tightening up, and I had to get a lot of release work doing it, and it just caused me a lot of grief. So if I bench now, I generally have a lot of a closer grip, because when I dumbbell press, it's pretty much dead smack on, elbow runs straight in line with my chest. So I don't flare my elbows out because it saves your shoulders. So all of my pressing motions are closer in, every single one of them. I don't have any shoulder issues. I don't want any shoulder issues. But I've had to learn that lesson the hard way. So but the other one is obviously the barbell squats and the deadlift, like the conventional deadlift, where you're actually bending your knees and you have a dead pause on the bottom. They are called the big three mainly because, like I said, they are part of the repertoire that's in a powerlifting meet, which is different to Olympic lifting.
How so?
So for Olympic lifting, it's a snatch and a clean and jerk. So you're flicking the bar up, similar to what maybe CrossFitters do. And they get it off the ground. Whereas a powerlifting competition is exactly that. The guys and girls are usually pretty well built. Well, at the top end they are. Predominantly, I always usually see the guys are usually with big bellies and big long beards and that sort of stuff, kind of like the strongman competition.
All stuff,
So the big thing with that is it work all those movements. So your squatting mainly works. You probably your quads in your core sort of an area. Works a little bit on the hamstrings, glutes, but not a great deal in terms of growth. So generally, people that are big squatters or that squat a lot usually have really well developed quads. And then if you've got a reasonable back, generally you've probably it's not the defining thing for a well-built back, but it could be a person that deadlifts. And you don't have to deadlift a lot, as in like you don't have to push 200-300 kilos to get good results. You could do your body weight times 1.5 could be a goal. So if you weigh 60, you might be aiming for 80 to 100 in reps. If you can do double that, double that's amazing. Double your body weight in any of those is fantastic. It's obviously harder when you're benching, but it's a lot easier to deadlift than squatting. Most people, if you look at how much load they can do, generally you can deadlift more than you can squat, and you can squat more than you can bench. That's generally how it works. But
there's some exceptions, child prodigies and shit and
stuff. Well, particularly if you spend a lot of time on one movement versus the other. Some people use your deadlift.
You can often have development there.
Exactly. Some people use your development for deadlifting for your hamstrings as well. I used to do back-to-back deadlift and squat on the same day, heavy. Your lower back would give a serious, you'd cook it, but not impossible. So in terms of, do they have to be in your training program? Well, it really depends on which fence you sit on, but generally speaking, I usually would put them in, particularly in a person that's been training for the first maybe 5 years, and get them to learn and practice the movements. And generally speaking, where I would structure it is at the start of their program, not the end, only because It requires a lot of muscles to do all of those exercises, and you want to be as fresh as possible. You don't really want to be, your chest pretty much be fatigued, and your bench press is the third exercise, and you're going loaded up with all the weight, and you end up going to injure yourself. It's just a recipe for disaster. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, in terms of what I do now, in the fact, given my age, the closest thing I probably do to all of them. Well, like I said, I do a close grip bench press now just for the sheer convenience, because it's easy to load.
Yeah.
The weight's not, it's nothing to brag about. And I mainly do Romanian deadlifts, mainly because I'm looking at a hamstring focus.
Yeah.
I do a lot of back work in a lot of different other sports and a lot of different exercises, so I don't worry about that. And then I use a Smith machine like a hat squat, so that I can get a lot more depth and it's a lot more stable. The weight's not as heavy, because the issue that I was having when I was going some pretty heavy weights on the barbell squat is when you're at the bottom and you twitch a little bit this way or twitch a little bit that way, then you're going to get I used to get some knee pain in random places, and after a while I was just getting sick of it. So I was like, I used to like the hack squat machine at the gym in the Club Limes, but obviously I don't have one. So I found an alternative with the Smith machine that I use, and gets quite a nice burn, and it feels really nice and stable. So
Are you still training at home?
Yeah. You're sitting. We're filming in my gym right now. Well, there's another room with gym equipment set up in it.
That's my dream. Have a whole just like home built gym built myself. But anyway, I got to get those money.